The day after Wang Yanbing left, shocking news came from Futian City. The day after Wang Yanbing left, shocking news came from Futian City. Futian City's Wang family would enter the celestial gate of vast heaven after 7 days and receive an examination from the celestial gate. This ancient family would return to the celestial gate after so many years. The news caused a big sensation. It seemed that when Wang Yanbing went to visit Qin He, the Wang family had already made their decision. So, Wang Yanbing said those words because, on the one hand, he wanted to show the attitude of the Wang family toward events in the heavenly mandate realm. On the other hand, he wanted to show his ambition. The Wang family should be ready. The test of Celestial Gate had not been held for many years. Every time it happened, it was always the most important thing in Futian City. This time, it was no exception. Many people felt strange when they thought of the rules of the Celestial Gate. Not only the Wang family, but was Wang Yanbing also ready for this? For a moment, everyone in Futian City was talking about this. At the same time, countless people were looking forward to it. During the Celestial Gate's test, Jiang Taichu, above the Celestial Gate of Vast Heaven, would formally fight with Wang Yanbing below the Celestial Gate. The two peerless figures above and below the Celestial Gate would collide for the first time. In the end, who would be more outstanding? As for Hua Qingyun, his plane was still not enough, and he might not be able to fight with Wang Yanbing. Many outsiders were also quite surprised. When the Violet Heavenly Palace and the Heavenly Mandate Dynasty were about to come, nobody expected that the Celestial Gate of Vast Heaven would hold a big internal event first. This time, would the Wang family return to the Celestial Gate and be in charge? In the palace, Qin He and Yi Futian also received the news. At this moment, Qin He and Yi Futian were discussing the matter. So Wang Yanbing came here that day was to reveal their attitude. If they enter the Celestial Gate, they might have some influence on your third brother, Qin He said to Yi Futian. Obviously, the current rulers of Celestial Gate, Jiang clan and Hua clan, had reached a consensus to take Gu Donglu back to the Celestial Gate. However, if Wang family's attitude was different, and they entered the Celestial Gate and became one of the ruling families of the Celestial Gate, it would be different. Yi Futian frowned slightly. Qin He continued, the Wang family chose the right time. They requested to enter the Celestial Gate now, which indicates that they are willing to face the pressure with the Celestial Gate instead of just thinking for themselves. So, from now on, no matter what decisions they make, people will not think they made it for themselves. What is the test of the Celestial Gate like? Yi Futian asked. The test of Celestial Gate is complicated, but it is also straightforward. There are only 3 parts, Qin He said. One is to test the ruler's competency and see if he has reached the top level of Renhuang plane. The second is to test the intermediate strength, including whether or not the Renhuang can compare with the Renhuang figures of the Celestial Gate. The third part is to test the ability of their younger generation, to see if their most outstanding figure in the young generation can fight against the best descendant of the Celestial Gate clans. These 3 parts evaluate the upper, middle, and lower 3 levels of the clan. It sounds simple because only 3 people will take the test, but it is also difficult because there can't be many clans that can compete with the top powers of the Celestial Gate on all 3 levels. Just the competition at the peak level will be enough to weed out countless forces. Besides, the leader of the clan must be at an advanced level. Otherwise, victory in the next 2 parts is meaningless. The Lord of the Wang family has reached the top level of Renhuang plane. So, as long as they pass the following 2 trials, the Wang family will be able to enter the Celestial Gate of Vast Heaven again. Qin He explained all of this to Yi Futian. Yi Futian nodded and said, I see. How likely do you think it is that the Wang family will re-enter the Celestial Gate? The Wang family has met the first condition, so they only need to complete one of the other 2 conditions. There is no Renhuang figure in the Wang family to compete with Renhuang warriors of the other 2 Celestial Gate clans, so the key lies in Wang Yanbing. His performance will decide whether or not the Wang family can return to the Celestial Gate. Qin He said, today, the top figure below the Renhuang plane in the Celestial Gate of Vast Heaven should be Jiang Taichu of Jiang clan. The battle between Jiang Taichu and Wang Yanbing will determine the fate of the Wang family. Jiang Taichu was raised by the Jiang clan of Celestial Gate of Vast Heaven. Can Wang Yanbing beat him? Yi Futian said. In Haotian City, it is said that, above the Celestial Gate, there are Jiang Taichu and Hua Qingyun, but below the Celestial Gate, there is Wang Yanbing. These three people have the same fame, which means that Wang Yanbing's talent is no less than the other two. Besides, the Wang family also used to be a leader of the Celestial Gate, and the Wang family also has one of the most powerful mystical ways. It is said that Wang Yanbing has cultivated to a very high level. So, it's hard to make any predictions about this battle. After all, I have never seen them fight, Qin he explained. Yi Futian nodded. He had not expected it would affect his third brother. What is the mystical way? Yi Futian asked, confused. The mystical way is also one of the cultivation methods, but it is different from ordinary cultivation methods. There used to be powerful figures in previous generations of the Celestial Gate of Vast Heaven who created many mystical ways. Some have been lost, and some have been passed down, which some continue to evolve. Until now, the Jiang clan and Hua clan both had their own mystical ways, and the Wang clan was the same. The reason why Gu Tianxing was unparalleled at his time was that he created an even stronger mystical way on the basis of his ancestors so he could touch the laws of heaven. Qin he continued, beside them, although there are many other powerful forces in Haotian City, none of them have mystical ways, so it is very difficult for them to reach the level of those clans. That is unless another peerless figure like Gu Tianxing appears in this world again. Yi Futian thought of the third brother's fight in the past. After the awakening of his life spirit, there was an immortal aura around the third brother, which indeed gave him strength even when he was under the seal. If the seal had been released at that time, the power would have become much stronger. A smile flashed across Qin He's eyes when she talked about this. She said, as far as I know, in addition to the few major clans today, there is the last place in Haotian City where the only remaining mystical way is being sealed. An eccentric person guards it. So far, no one had been able to get it. Are you interested in taking a look? Even the Jiang clan and Hua clan of the Celestial Gate of Vast Heaven have not gotten it? Yi Futian asked curiously. Not yet, Qin he shook her head and said. An ancestor left it, and the Celestial Gate of Vast Heaven also abides by his rules. In the past, Gu Tianxing and Gu Jiangnen both were there in person, but both of them failed. Many gallant figures of the Heavenly Mandate realm have also gone, but so far, the mystical way is still sealed there. Yi Futian's eyes suddenly lit up. He looked at Qin He and smiled, saying, when should we go? Seeing Yi Futian look at her, Qin He smiled and said, you seem to be looking forward to it? I'm the divine form of heavenly laws, Yi Futian said, laughing. Qin He rolled her eyes. Did this guy think of himself as the divine form of heavenly laws after repeating it several times? Where did this title of divine form of heavenly laws come from? You are shameless, Qin He said with an embarrassed smile, which made her even more charming. Looking at the stunning face, Yi Futian was lost for a moment. Jiyu used to be like her. Somehow, she called him shameless, which drew them closer. So, should we go now? Qin He asked. Okay, Yi Futian replied. I'll call others, all right. We will meet outside, Qin He said, nodding. Yi Futian returned to the palace where he and others stayed, then gathered people for departure. Others were getting ready to set out, but Xia Qingyuan was still sitting there. We should go now, Yi Futian told her. No, Xia Qingyuan said coldly. Yi Futian blinked and asked, what happened? I don't want to ruin the mood, Xia Qingyuan said. Everyone around them gave Yi Futian a meaningful look. They were often together. Who couldn't read the princess's mind? Especially those who came from the lower realm with Xia Qingyuan. She had made so much effort and everyone knew why. Today, Jiyu would forever become a scar on his heart. After their experience in the Origin Mountains, everyone was expecting that something would happen between Xia Qingyuan and Yi Futian. Who knew that Qin He could show up and steal Yi Futian? What else could they say? He was a real two-timer. Brahma's pure sky's first maiden, with a stunning face, was alluring to men. Yi Futian showed a strange expression. He looked at Xia Qingyuan and said, Are you jealous? Xia Qingyuan froze. Her fists were clenched slightly, and her face turned red. She raised her head, a pair of beautiful eyes staring at Yi Futian, and stood up. She said, "You must feel really good about yourself." As she was talking, she stepped forward and said, "Let's go." Yi Futian's face was dull. Everyone around him was looking at him. Yi Futian saw this scene and felt strange. He said, "What are you guys looking at? Did these guys have some opinion?" Kong Xian walked past Yi Futian, showing a bit of contempt. She had seen all the things Xia Qingyuan had done for Yi Futian, but this guy now hung around with the first maiden of Brahma's pure sky Qinhe. He was shameless. "Peacock, what are you looking at?" Yi Futian asked Kong Xian when he saw Kong Xian's disdainful look. What did she mean? "Master, I think the first maiden is better," Little Condor said, for fear that the world would be peaceful. The maiden looked very gentle, unlike Xia Qingyuan, whose temper was bad. "Get out," Yi Futian said, kicking him out. Black-winged Condor rolled on the ground and rose, looking up at Yi Futian with some sadness. He was about to say something, but when he saw the faint smile on Yi Futian's face, he lowered his head again, pretending to be guilty. Sir Condor had to take the blame for Master this time. Yi Futian sighed and then walked away, thinking that women were indeed trouble. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. There was an alley in Futian City called Fei Alley. There was an alley in Futian City called Fei Alley. At the end of the alley, there was a family with an old man living in it. According to the people in the alley, the old man may have lived there for hundreds of years. The people in the alley have lived there for generations, yet the old man was the same as before. It was also said that he might have lived for thousands of years. Gradually, there were many legends about the old man in the alley, and all had said that he was a fae. Furthermore, there were often visits made by some well-known figures to the old man, but most of them returned, disappointed. As time went on, there were more and more rumors regarding the old man. The big one was that the old man in the alley had been guarding something. It was said to have been a fey craft of the celestial gate of vast heaven, waiting for the one. It was just that many years had passed, but this fey craft was still waiting for its master. The alley was located somewhat remotely in a corner of Futian City. Those who lived here were definitely not the most recognized of Futian City. However, many formidable men had come out of this alley. Every few years, there would be an incredibly talented figure that walked out of this alley. Generation after generation, out of the many who came out of this alley, a considerable number of them had become existence of Renhuang. Therefore, this alley was becoming more renowned, coming to be known as Fei Alley. Many were wondering, was the old man someone to be bothered with? Just what exactly was he guarding that made him stay there for so many years? This kind of loneliness was not something that ordinary people could bear. Recently, this alley had become troublesome again, with many visitors coming daily. Moreover, those who visited were all exceptional in temperament. At this moment, at the end of the alley, a young man named Qi Yuxuanang was playing chess with an old man. This young man was always staring at the chessboard. He did not dare to be distracted for a moment. The old man's hand was toying with the chess pieces. He had a mild smile on his face, looking at the young man thinking, it seems that he likes this state very much. The youth's temperament was outstanding, but the old man was very simple. He hadn't known how many years he had worn his clothes for. It seemed to be the same in many people's memories. The predecessors have nothing to do, and the juniors' chess skills are shameful. The man in black spilled the chess pieces on the chessboard and shook his head a bit decadently. It has been very good to be able to play for so long, the old man said with a smile, looking very kind. Is this game difficult to solve, or is it difficult to solve the game over there? The man in black looked up to the side. At the end of the wide alley, there were 4 statues guarding the alley. The 4 statues were the 4 spirits: Dragon, Phoenix, Kailine, and Black Turtle. The 4 statues were guarding this place so that the whole alley seemed to be shrouded in a peculiar atmosphere. However, at this time, in front of the 4 statues, an outstanding young man in a blue robe was playing guqin. His skills were extremely exquisite, and the sound of the guqin attracted the movement of the great path in heaven and the earth. One of the statues was faintly releasing radiant beams as if it could perceive the existence of the sound of the guqin, and a certain response was born. "Take a guess." The old man smiled at the questioning young man. "I guess that game should be more difficult to solve," the young man said with a smile. His gaze was still focusing there, and he asked, "Are the four spirits really alive?" "Of course," the old man replied. "How could the statues be living creatures?" the young man whispered, not as if to ask a question but rather just talking to himself. The old man smiled without saying a word, and the mood expressed by the sound of the guqin was even more transcendent. It seemed to communicate with the world and resonated with the great path. There seemed to be shadows of dragons and phoenixes whistling around the young man, with golden rocks and cranes flying hither. It was a scene so magnificent that the second statue was lit up. In the vast world, suffocating pressure of might suddenly enveloped the space, and a low voice was heard. It was the sound of the dragon, and at the top of the sky, an immense shadow of the divine dragon loomed. Its huge eyes stared ahead. Its might shrouded the entire alley. At this moment, everyone in Fei Alley could feel a terrible pressure. A crystalline sound came out, and the mood created by the guqin was interrupted and stopped abruptly. The young man let out a low moan and showed a look of disappointment. He glanced up at the sky, and the dragon's shadow gradually dissipated. But the statue still stood there, as if there had never been any change. But the scene that had just happened was so real. Not only did he feel it, but so did everyone else in Fei Alley had. Figures came to this side. The hearts of the people in Xianren Lane trembling slightly, and there was slight turbulence in their hearts. As far as they knew, the statues had not had any reactions for many years. Who was it that could let the divine dragon statue come to life? It would seem that someone of importance had arrived in Fei Alley. When they saw that the young man, who was playing the guqin, was so young, they were all slightly surprised. Moreover, the young man's temperament was extremely elegant and otherworldly. It was as if he was a disciple of the Fei clan. The dragon spirit among the four spirits is revived. How fitting for Hua Qingyun of the Fei clan. At this time, a voice spoke up. Suddenly, an extremely sharp breath appeared in the alley. The gaze of the crowd turned to a figure coming forward. Though his walk was very casual, it was enough to exude sharpness to those around him. It was as if he was a divine soldier that was unsheathed, all invincible. At the same time, many people were slightly shocked. The handsome young man who played turned out to be Hua Qingyun, the most ingenious talent of the celestial gate of vast heaven. In the Fei clan, though many had never seen Jiang Taichu and Hua Qingyun, they certainly had heard of their names. Hua Qingyun looked at the newcomer, and recognizing the other immediately. He said casually, "You are not preparing for the entrance of the Fei clan, and what are you doing here? Could it be that you also want to give it a shot?" The man who arrived was Wang Yanbing. He would be tested by the celestial gate of vast heaven in a few days. Many people who were present also recognized him, and many were a little thoughtful. Hua Qingyun above the celestial gate of vast heaven and Wang Yanbing below the celestial gate of vast heaven were both here. Jiang Taichu was not. Otherwise, these three men, who enjoyed the same renown, would be all here in one place. "Just walking around and ended up here," Wang Yanbing said. The Wang clan was once the governing family of the celestial gate of vast heaven. He naturally knew what was sealed here. Unfortunately, until this day, no one had gotten it. Even during the times of extraordinary figures, such as Gu Tianxing and Gu Jiangnan, they were unable to take these items when they were in the Saint Plane. These mystical ways, to this day, were still sealed here. But for the clan principalities inherited through celestial gate of vast heaven, these mystical ways must be obtained. It was just that it was uncertain as to when it would be done, or who would be the one to complete the task. "Since you are here, we could try together," Hua Qingyun said as Wang Yanbing continued forward until he was in front of the old man. He bowed slightly. Wang Yanbing greets the venerable elder. "The descendant of the Wang clan is also here." The old man smiled. "I just don't know how many years we will have to wait. When the time is right, naturally it will be solved," Wang Yanbing responded. He looked at the chess player sitting opposite the old man. Gao Huang. The man nodded with a smile. Wang Yanbing's eyes flashed a strange color. He replied, "Nice to meet you." Although Gao Huang of the 10,000 Divine Mountain was not widely known, far less so than Zhan Yuan of the Supreme Body of the Great Path and the Crown Prince of the Heavenly Mandate Dynasty, he had studied the top figures of the Heavenly Mandate realm. Gao Huang was not a simple man. He was a legend in his own right. His achievements definitely would never be less than that of Zhan Yuan of the Supreme Body of the Great Path. Likewise, Gao Huang nodded in return. 2 of the 3 most excellent people of the Celestial Gate of Vast Heaven had arrived today. He sensed that both Hua Qingyun and Wang Yanbing were more complex than they looked. At this moment, sounds that came through the sheer air, which caught everyone's attention. They saw a group of people come out of thin air. They were extraordinary in temperament, especially the woman amongst them, who was stunningly beautiful. Her image was ravishing. How beautiful! Many couldn't help but express their admiration. In addition, the other 2 women were also extremely good-looking. One of them, though dressed in men's clothes, radiated a clear beauty. I didn't expect the goddesses to be here. Gao Huang smiled. It was truly lively today. Not only was Qin He, the premier maiden of Brahma's pure heaven, here, but Yi Futian, who had defeated Zhan Yun of the Supreme Body of the Great Path, had accompanied her. Wang Yanbing also nodded slightly to greet Qin He. On the other side, Hua Qingyun looked over there with a smile, saying, "Fei Ali Fairy is lively today." Yi Futian looked at all who were present. Not only was Wang Yanbing here, but also Gao Huang. If he remembered correctly, this person should be the top genius of 10,000 Divine Mountain. But while at the Violet Heavenly Palace, compared to the Crown Prince of the Heavenly Mandate Dynasty and Zhan Yuan, Gao Huang seemed to be even more low-key and restrained. It was unexpected that he arrived first at Fei Alley. He was obviously very familiar with Futian City. Then he looked at the 4 statues of spirit again, guarding the 4 directions. Although they were just statues, he could feel a sense of invisible might. Not long ago, while he was entering Fei Alley, he even saw a divine dragon descending. It should be that statue. 4 spirits of the Fei Alley. Rumor has it that the 4 spirits must be awakened before the mystical ways can be revealed. For many years, no one had been able to do it. Qin He transmitted her voice to Yi Futian. Yi Futian nodded gently. So then, among the 4 spirits, it was the dragon spirit that was awakening, but it only lasted for a moment. The old man was standing to the side and looking at the people. He stood with his hands behind his back, without any trace of breath from his body. It was the first time that genius characters from all sides came all at once. It was still uncertain if there were some surprises in store for all of them. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Yi Futian stood there quietly, feeling the atmosphere. Standing in this alley, he could clearly feel the inexplicable and invisible might coming from the front. Yi Futian stood there quietly, feeling the atmosphere. Standing in this alley, he could clearly feel the inexplicable and invisible might coming from the front. Although the 4 spirits were only 4 statues, they gave out a slight sense of might, and the method with which they were made was unknown. Or rather, was there a mighty person who had gifted will to the 4 spirits? And just now, how did Hua Qingyun awaken the dragon spirit? The people of Celestial Gate of Vast Heaven and Futian City should have had an even better idea than they did. Does Goddess Qin know what conditions are needed to awaken the 4 spirits? Yi Futian transmitted his voice to ask Qin He. I don't know, Qin He responded. No one knows, or maybe even if they knew, they couldn't do it. Or maybe, just awaken them with will so that any means are possible. Yi Futian nodded secretly and did not ask again. If it were so easy to wake up the 4 spirits, then someone would have already done it. All these years, with so many great men from the Celestial Gate of Vast Heaven, including peerless characters, such as Gu Tianxing and Gu Jiangnan, all had been unable to achieve it. The disciples of the Fei clan must have tried, but clearly, no one was successful. After all, there was a volume of mystical ways hidden here, and the celestial gate of vast heaven wanted it more than any other forces. The same was true for Wang Yanbing. The Wang clan wanted to return to the Fei clan. If they could get to the mystical ways hidden in this Fei alley, it would undoubtedly increase their chances and improve their reputation as the ones who brought the mystical ways to the Fei clan. Thus, Wang Yanbing came here to give it a try. Although the chance was slim, one could still try. Hua Qingyun, did you have any comprehension communicating with the dragon spirit just now? Wang Yanbing stepped forward and asked Hua Qingyun. Hua Qingyun looked at him only to hear Wang Yanbing continue. With your strength alone, I'm afraid it's impossible. Now that everyone wants it, why don't we all cooperate and give it a try? As to where the mystical ways ultimately belong, we can fight for it later. Hua Qingyun smiled dashingly and said, to give consciousness with the sound of the Guqin and perceive the given will in the dragon spirit, to try to communicate and awaken it. Since it can be awakened, then will must be within them. Everyone agreed in their hearts, but in fact, many had also guessed as much. Otherwise, how could truly inanimate objects be awakened? How about trying together? Wang Yanbing looked at Hua Qingyun, Qin He, Gao Huang and the others. Sure. Hua Qingyun nodded. I will still take care of this dragon spirit, but you take care of the others. I will take charge of this Qilin, Wang Yanbing said. As he was speaking, they looked at Qin He and Gao Huang. Gao Huang smiled and said, ladies first. Phoenix, Qin He replied. Okay, then I will try to wake up this black turtle. But the black turtle is the laziest, and I have stated in advance that I don't have much confidence, Gao Huang said lightly. Let's do it, Wang Yanbing said as he stepped toward the statue of the Qilin. Hua Qingyun was in front of the statue of the dragon spirit, and his hand lightly rested on the Guqin. Gao Huang walked toward the statue of the black turtle. Qin He glanced at Yi Futian next to her and said, you will stay here and experience it? She was very clear that even for the four of them to join forces, they would not easily succeed. This time, it was mostly just an attempt. Yes, Yi Futian nodded. The group of four stepped forward one by one, and everyone in Fei Alley revealed a strange look when they beheld this scene. For these four people, Hua Qingyun and Wang Yanbing were the most genius talents above and below the celestial gate of vast heaven. Qin He came from Brahma's pure heaven, and Gao Huang was from 10,000 divine mountain. It was unknown if the alliance of the top four geniuses could revive the four spirits. The sound of the Guqin sounded with highly penetrating power, the notes jumping and heading toward the statue of the dragon spirit. Hua Qingyun's demeanor while playing the Guqin was lovely, and a wonderful breath appeared around him, shrouding him with that statue of the dragon spirit. Wang Yanbing came to the Qilin, and an extremely sharp breath bloomed from him. Countless divine arms whistled when he stretched out his palm and put it on the statue of Qilin. In an instant, an extreme sharp breath of divine arms bloomed, and Wang Yanbing seemed to be turned into a weapon of divine arms. It was as if Wang Yanbing at this moment had turned into the king of arms. Many of the cultivators in the alley felt that the divine arms that they carried were trembling as if they were out of control, wanting to head for Wang Yanbing. Yi Futian also felt an unusual breath, and he looked at Wang Yanbing with surprise. Was this the mystical ways of warriors from the Wang family? The statue of Qilin was dazzling all over. It was as if the will of the divine arms buried it. Suddenly, a terrible pressure of might pervaded from the Qilin, shrouding Wang Yanbing. However, Wang Yanbing was still standing there, and clear sounds of crackling could be heard. The will of the divine arms was broken. He felt an extremely terrible might, but Wang Yanbing did not retreat. He turned his whole person into an extremely sharp weapon of divine arms. As long as the four of them each did their part, and awakened a statue of the four spirits, there may be hope for success. Qin He's slender and delicate hands were also touching the statue of the phoenix. Her body was shrouded in sacred light, which made her even more beautiful and radiant. Various divine thoughts enveloped the statue of the phoenix, seemingly wanting to feel its existence. Her beautiful eyes gradually closed, her perception getting stronger and stronger. Shrouded under the divine light, it was as if everything between heaven and earth was within her perception. Her hands felt a little hot. from this statue of the phoenix, she gradually sensed hot stream that burned her mind and even made her palms feel a burning force. This feeling caused Qin He to take it a little more seriously, and she looked extremely focused. Under the sacred light, her divine will released to the extreme as she attempted to capture the spirit of the phoenix. Only in this way could it possibly be awakened. Many in Fei Alley looked somber as they felt the change between heaven and earth. The invisible pressure of might seemed to grow stronger. It was as if there was a sacred force shrouding Fei Alley. Many, whose cultivations were weaker, felt a sense of suffocation. Some even felt that their bodies were burning. It was as if they were on fire. All three statues had reacted except for the statue of the black turtle. The turtle laid there without any change. The breath on Gao Huang was strong, but he could not make the black turtle react in the slightest. Of the four spirits, the black turtle is the hardest to awaken, people in Fei Alley secretly thought. They had heard many stories over the generations. Many great men had come to try it, and the other three statues all had reacted before. As the saying went, the 1,000-year-old turtle lived so long that it was a lazy bee asterisk starred. No one could wake up. The old man next to him looked on quietly. A slight smile appeared at the corner of his eyes. These many years of waiting with no one able to achieve it, it was not so easy to be woken up. It seemed that today was fruitless. Futian looked at all this quietly. His eyes were deep and boundless, as if there was a magical luminosity that appeared. At this moment, the entire world seemed to have changed in his eyes. It was as if he could see everything in the nothingness. He looked at the statues of the four spirits as if he could see the picture hidden within them. Of the statue of the four spirits, the statue of the dragon spirit seemed to be the most irritable, and a faint shadow of a dragon could be seen. The statue of the Qilin and the phoenix also had a strange spirit as each opened their eyes. Only the statue of that black turtle seemed to have a spirit prostrating underneath the shell of the turtle. It did not react, and no breath was able to be detected from it. As if he had detected something not far away, the old man looked at Futian. Futian turned his gaze to look at him in the same manner, and the luminosity in his eyes disappeared. He smiled. He walked toward the old man and said, "Elder, are any means allowable as long as the four spirits can be revived?" "Yes." The old man glanced at Futian and nodded with a smile. Just from Futian's eyes, he could feel an unusual breath. In his realm, when he regarded those eyes, he felt that he was being observed in secrecy. "Can the statues be destroyed?" Futian asked. "Try it." The old man smiled. "Destroying the statues?" "Very well." Futian nodded. "This black turtle does not seem to have any movement. I would like to give it a try." Futian walked to the statue of the black turtle. Gao Huang saw him coming this way and said, "You want to try?" "Yes." Futian nodded. "Please." Gao Huang stepped back, making way for Futian. "Much obliged." Futian nodded smilingly, and then walked in front of the statue of the black turtle. He reached out and knocked on the statue's turtle shell, making a crystal-clear sound. This scene made many onlookers blink. "Who is this?" "Turtle Elder, if you are indeed a spirit, please show yourself. Otherwise, you'll have to pardon my tactics," Futian said. There was no response. Many people looked at him, speechless. Xia Qingyu and Yu Xing rolled their eyes. This guy never cared about his image. Seeing that the black turtle without response, Futian placed his palm on the shell of the turtle, and a flame manifested immediately. The statue of the turtle was shrouded in an instant, and the flame penetrated every part of the turtle. The pressure of might from the other three statues was getting stronger, but still was not waking up. There was just a sense of suffocation, and the statue of the turtle was still motionless, without any reaction. Everyone who was watching smirked at Futian. This guy was also asking to be humiliated. However, Futian did not feel anything, and the flame was burning still. Inside his body, the ancient tree of the world in his life palace was swaying, turning into a fiery red ancient tree. The fire spirit orb released the terrible light of the flame, and then flowed out along Futian's arms, turning into the power of flame and burning the statue of the turtle. "If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. When Futian released the flame, his eyes also became strange. It was as if they could see through everything in the nothingness. When Futian released the flame, his eyes also became strange. It was as if they could see through everything in the nothingness. Within the statue of the turtle, the spirit of the black turtle still huddled inside the shell, allowing the flames to burn without any reaction and without releasing any breath. Futian understood the reason why the turtle had never been awakened before. It was too lazy to move, so how could you wake it up? Turtle Elder, hiding inside is not a solution. Why don't you give me some consideration? Futian said to the statue of the turtle. All who had heard Futian's words in Fei Alley hesitated. Was this guy a fool? He was talking to the turtle statue? For many years, no one had ever awoken the statue of the turtle, and he was having a conversation with it. And what did it mean to give him some consideration? The old man coughed and rolled his eyes. This kid was really funny. However, if this was useful, why hadn't it been tried before? Over the years, people had tried everything. Attempting to awaken the black turtle by having a conversation with it? Wasn't this a dream? When Futian saw that the turtle did not react at all, he sighed and said, "Although the turtle's shell is hard, is it afraid of fire?" As he was saying this, in the Life Palace, Will infused into the spirit orb of divine flame. Suddenly, the golden will of divine flame appeared in the Life Palace, burning directly in the void toward the figure of the black turtle. Suddenly, a boundless and thick breath erupted, suffocating everyone. Futian's body was directly knocked out, and an invisible wind blew upon him. The sudden scene made countless people stare. What happened? The breath was coming from the statue of the black turtle. It actually moved. Gao Huang's eyes flashed a very sharp will, staring at Futian. The others also revealed a look of surprise. This wouldn't really be useful, would it? Countless eyes were now staring at the statue of the turtle. For many years, the statue of the black turtle had never moved. Today, there was a terrifying atmosphere inside the statue, which made everyone feel extremely heavy pressure. In the air, choking pressure of might permeated. Futian looked forward and saw the sleeping turtle look up, a pair of cold eyes staring at him. Futian and the turtle looked at each other, and the spirit of the black turtle slowly emerged from the statue. "Can you see me?" A human voice came from the turtle's mouth, directly sounding inside Futian's ears, but the others could not hear it. At this moment, Futian felt an extremely curious breath. It was as if he was in another world, and what he saw was not from the outside world. Futian nodded. This time he did not speak. "What about them? Can you see them?" the black turtle continued. Futian looked at the other three statues and saw a giant dragon shadow hovering above the void. A horrible purple mist was hidden within the shadow of the Qilin, and the phoenix seemed also to want to break through the statue. An invisible fire was released, making the space extremely tight. As if something was detected, the three spirits turned their eyes at the same time, looking at Futian. At this moment, they seemed to be able to perceive the existence of the other. The four pressures of might bloomed at the same time, and everyone saw the four statues light up. The hearts of many trembled. Was the alliance this time was successful? "What's your physique?" The black turtle stared at Futian as if talking to himself. How could their existence be seen? Even Ren Huang could not do it, as they could ever only perceive their existence unless a connection was made with them. But Futian did not. Futian looked bewildered. He had no idea what kind of physique he had. Even though he claimed to have the divine body of the heavenly path, he meant it more as a joke, some made-up stuff that he used to amuse himself. The other three cultivators sensed the peculiarity of the statues and released their power to a greater degree. There was a sound of dragon chanting. At this moment, a giant shadow of the dragon appeared above Fei Alley, hovering in the sky. A mighty pressure enveloped the endless void. All of Fei Alley was shrouded in this terrifying might. Wind blew past them, and the breath of flames seemed to burn the world. Qin He's body was directly knocked down by the shock, and she felt like her body was about to be lit on fire. She retreated instantly. In the sky above the statue, a divine shadow of a phoenix manifested. The song of the phoenix was heard above the clouds as a divine fire of the great path swept out. Many in Fei Alley felt as if they were about to prostrate on the ground, and many whose cultivations were weaker were shocked back. Then it was the divine beast, the Qilin. The majestic and dominant breath appeared in the sky above. The Qilin's eyes, full of contempt, looked at everyone, and no one dared to look at him in the eyes. 3 statues manifested at the same time, and 3 out of the 4 spirits were awakened. In an instant, countless eyes looked at the statue of the black turtle. Only one was left. The divine turtle's gaze was still fixed on Yi Futian, and then, the breath was roaring between heaven and earth, with the will of the great path churning and flowing toward him. Suddenly, a real figure of the black turtle appeared. At this moment, everyone's hearts were beating wildly. The 4 spirits of Fei Alley were awakened. Would the mystical ways finally reveal themselves? The old man watched the 4 spirits waking up. He looked extremely emotional. His arms were trembling slightly. He had waited all these years, and finally it was here. His mission could finally be completed. The mystical ways could finally find its successor. At this moment, the 4 spirits released brilliant divine light, and suddenly, lines appeared between heaven and earth, turning into a terrible matrix of the 4 spirits as the 4 statues exchanged their positions. Behind the 4 statues was the end of Fei Alley. There was a closed-up mansion that was called the Fei Palace by those in Fei Alley. But there was no doubt that this courtyard must contain mystical ways, which had been sealed for many years. The 4 spirits are the key that unlock the seal? Many saw the radiant matrix and revealed a strange look, their hearts beating. Qin He looked on rather blankly. Her beautiful eyes drifted toward Yi Futian beside her. Although she felt the strong will inside the statues before, she was unable to awaken it. Then, the situation changed suddenly, and the divine phoenix was awakened. The scene in front of her eyes appeared. It was not just the divine phoenix, but the 4 spirits seemed to be awakened at the same time as if they were stimulated in some way. And all of this started when the statue of the black turtle started to release its breath. Could it be that the statue of the black turtle was the key? Yi Futian was able to provoke a reaction from the statue of the black turtle and subsequently awakened the 4 spirits at the same time. They manifested one after another. How did you do it? Qin He asked Yi Futian. Out of the statues of the 4 spirits, the one who had never been awakened before was the statue of the black turtle, which was also known as the hardest to awaken. But Yi Futian did it today. Yi Futian looked at Qin He. Clearly, he couldn't say that he could see what others couldn't, so he shrugged and said, "Maybe the black turtle elder heard me and didn't want me to be embarrassed in front of everyone." Qin He blinked, and she looked away silently. Shameless. This B** star didn't even make a good excuse when he was lying. Only idiots would believe him. If having a dialogue with the statue could awaken them, those geniuses who had tried would probably vomit blood now. The alliance of the 4 top genius talents indeed live up to their name, the people in Fei Alley said amongst themselves, very shocked. Some people said, "That guy is very tricky." He led the statue of the black turtle to react, and the 4 spirits woke up at the same time. Very tricky indeed, everyone said in their hearts, not sure how he did it. The 4 spirits flew into the matrix. A flame seemed to be burning, and it gradually turned into nothingness. Immediately, the front gate of the Fei Palace moved positions, then opened directly to reveal an ancient path, with the 4 statues standing guard on both sides. The Fei Palace is opened. The eyes of many were blazing hot. All had the urge to step inside. At this moment, the old man took a step forward, and a horrific might of Renhuang appeared, suppressing the entire Fei Alley, also suppressing the thoughts on everyone's mind. At this moment he changed his former temperament, and dazzling divine light flowed upon his body, his long hair flying in the wind. The old man's eyes swept towards the crowd. At the moment he was faintly struggling within his heart. He had waited for many years. He thought he would feel the excitement of relief at this moment, but he didn't. As existence of Renhunag, His state of mind ought to be extremely stable. But the weight of a millennium had given way to other thoughts inside his head. For a moment, he seemed to have made a decision. He said to the 4 people in front of him, "The 4 spirits have awakened. The mystical ways will now choose its master. I will unseal the mystical ways while you wait here." As he finished, he walked first toward the Fey Palace. Futian and the others stood outside quietly, watching the old man step into the Fey Palace. Are the mystical ways finally about to be revealed? A brilliant light flashed across Hua Qingyun's eyes. The success this time was unexpected to everyone. The same was true for Wang Yanbing. He just came to try but did not expect that the Fey Palace would really be opened. Now, they were all thinking about other things, such as who would inherit the mystical ways. The mystical ways are an inheritance of the Fey clan. Now, it is by chance and coincidence that the mystical ways would be revealed to the world. Both Goddess Qin and you are not descendants of the Fey clan. Could you give up the claim to the mystical ways? If one of us inherited it, I'm sure the rewards for you too would be generous, Wang Yanbing said to Qin He and Futian. The 4 spirits were awakened by the 4 of them, and it should be inherited by one of them. However, only Hua Qingyun and he were the descendants of the orthodox lineage of the Fey clan. A generous reward that could unravel the mystical ways? Futian smiled and asked, "Did they think they would give up so easily? If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible." Qin He looked at Wang Yanbing and said with a smile, "Surely, young Master Wang is joking. Since these mystical ways were sealed in Fei Alley, not in the celestial gate of vast heaven, it clearly cannot be said to belong to the Fei clan. Let's be honest, is young Master Wang really a disciple of the Fei clan?" Qin He looked at Wang Yanbing and said with a smile, "Surely, young Master Wang is joking. Since these mystical ways were sealed in Fei Alley, not in the celestial gate of vast heaven, it clearly cannot be said to belong to the Fei clan. Let's be honest, is young Master Wang really a disciple of the Fei clan? Generous reward? What kind of heavy reward were they talking about? Now that there was a chance to inherit the mystical ways, no one would give it up so easily. These mystical ways had been sealed here for a millennium. Now that it was finally revealed, it must be extraordinary. Wang Yanbing didn't say much when he heard this. The opening of the Fei clan was purely an unexpected event this time, which no one had anticipated. Now the mystical ways were about to be unveiled. It was impossible to ask anyone to give up. While they were speaking, a dazzling brilliance shot to the sky from inside the Fei Palace, and a very strong breath permeated their surroundings, accompanied by great might of Renhuang. What's going on? Everyone's eyes flashed with uncertainty. What was happening inside? Not good. Hua Qingyun's eyes suddenly became cold. He said, "Let's go and see." Just as his voice fell, several aggressive breaths came from Fei Alley. Several figures walked directly toward the Fei Palace. Fox guarding the henhouse? Futian's eyes also showed some surprise, but he didn't say anything. Perhaps he was wrong. However, it was entirely possible. This old man should be a guardian of the mystical ways, and it was rumored that he had been guarding it for a millennium. Even for someone in the existence of Renhuang, having been here for a millennium, the state of his mind was perhaps shaken. To think of stealing the mystical ways for himself was not impossible. The 4 spirits previously seemed to be a very strong seal of the Fey matrix that even the old man himself could not break. The master of the mystical ways had guarded against him taking it away. Futian and the others also went toward the palace. The gate of the palace was opened wide, and over the stairs, there was a figure standing in front of a palace. It was the old man from before. He released a breath of horror, his palm reaching toward the sky, attempting to take down the thing that was above his head. It was a scripture. At this moment, this ancient scripture was releasing brilliant light of the divine as if it was locked in the center of the Fey matrix, impossible to move for the time being. Even though this Renhuang made an attempt, it was only enough to make the matrix tremble, while that ancient book was still suspended in the air. It couldn't be taken. "What are you doing?" Figures descended as Hua Qingyun and Wang Yanbing were followed by those of Renhuang existence, the same with Qin He. The might of pressure of Renhuang rained down, aiming toward the old man. I have guarded it for thousands of years. The old man stared at the space above his head, his voice very cross, saying, "But I have never held it." He had never thought that it would take this long, and he had wanted to leave it behind, but then a thought took hold of him. He wanted to see just it could open it and take it. After he had become used to it, he must admit that it was the getting used to it that was the most horrific. He felt like he was just an ordinary person, and this was his routine every single day. Until now, when the gate was opened, there was a great shock that took hold of his mind. It gave birth to thoughts he had never had before. He had kept the mystical ways for thousands of years. Why couldn't he take it? Why should he give it to others? When his thoughts turned to this, he raised his palm again and grabbed toward the void. A great handprint clawed at the ancient scripture, trying to pull it out of the Fey matrix. Still, he was not able to shake it. "You won't be able to take it," said a Renhuang existence of the Hua clan. The power of might from several Renhuang pressed down at the same time as they raised their hands to press down. Even if they tried to control the range affected by this display of might, the vast and endless void still felt the suffocating pressure. Yi Futian and the others felt that it was impossible to move even half a step. Their bodies felt extremely heavy, and they could only watch everything that was happening in front of them. As a terrifying storm swept out, the old man's body shook and was actually able to shatter the oppressive attack directly, demonstrating just how strong his cultivation was. Hua Qingyun, Wang Yanbing, and the others beheld this scene with a grave countenance. They had thought that once the gate was opened, the old man who guarded the gate would relinquish the mystical ways proactively. But in fact, he was overtaken by his greed and wanted to possess the scripture for himself. "Even if it can't be taken, I want to take a look," the old man said. His eyes were on the ancient book, and the great handprint forcibly took away the ancient book and opened it. The ancient scripture flipped in the void, page by page, but the old man's face suddenly turned pale. It turned out that the book was blank. There was nothing and he didn't see anything. For an instant, he seemed to run out of strength and looked on, powerless. Why was it so? At this moment, several breaths of terror came from afar, and the mighty majesty of Renhuang shrouded the heavens as if demanding all beings to submit. In the distance, cultivators descended from all directions and all sides, and their breaths were extremely horrific. "Xie Ling, how presumptuous of you," an indifferent voice said. The old man looked in the direction where the sound came from. Xie Ling was his real name. Once upon a time, he had followed the master of the mystical ways to cultivate, so that he would have the opportunity to become a Renhuang and reach an elevated realm. "I've been here for a millennium. What is so presumptuous about taking a mere look at it?" Xie Ling responded, equally indifferent. "It was only because of the greatness of Emperor Yuan at that time that you enjoyed the respect I paid you. But I never expected that you would steal that which you guard," the cultivator in the void said coldly. "Go away and don't enter this place again." Xie Ling glanced at the strong cultivators that populated the void. Several of the major figures had come in person. It wouldn't be hard for them to take him down. He suddenly laughed into the sky and stepped into the air, leaving in an instant. Even though the mystical ways will be inherited, there can never be another like Emperor Yuan. An ephemeral voice came from the void. All the top figures looked somber. Emperor Yuan of yore was indeed fearfully strong. Everyone in the heavenly mandated realm was in awe without exception. Even if the mystical ways were passed down, would anyone be able to surpass him? "The gate was opened by the four of you?" the lord of the Jiang clan asked, looking down at the four people below. And they nodded. 2 were not disciples of the Fei clan and are not qualified to inherit the mystical ways. The one who spoke was the lord of the Wang clan. The breath from his body was also very strong and overbearing, and he looked at the lord of the Jiang clan. It would only be Wang Yanbing who would compete with Hua Qingyun. Hua Qingyun was extremely talented, but his cultivation was weaker than Wang Yanbing's. Thus, Wang Yanbing had a high probability of obtaining the mystical ways. The lord of the Jiang clan looked down at Yi Futian and Qin He. These mystical ways were Emperor Yuan's, and they should follow his last wish. Since the four opened the gate together, let them decide amongst themselves, the lord of the Jiang clan said. What do you think? The lord of Wang clan asked the lord of the Hua clan. The Hua clan had Hua Qingyun, so he also wished that the competition was limited between the two. Thus, the possibility of Hua Qingyun getting it was greater. If you want to disobey the wish of the ancestors, shouldn't you just take the mystical ways directly to celestial gate of vast heaven and decide there? Why bother arguing? Yi Futian said lightly. The Wang clan had not yet entered the Fei clan. What qualifications did they have to compete? The head of the Wang clan glanced at Yi Futian with a sharp look. Master Yi is right. If the wishes of the ancestors are not respected, why bother fighting when it should have belonged to the Fei clan? Qin He also spoke, preemptively blocking anything the head of the Wang clan could say. Since they didn't want them to compete for it, then Wang Yanbing would also have no share in it, as he was not qualified to compete. The two young ones speak the truth, the lord of the Jiang clan remarked lightly, while the head of the Wang clan looked rather grouchy. He said, if you think so, then we'll follow the wishes of Emperor Yuan. Then the four of you fight for your share, the lord of the Jiang clan said, looking down at the four below. Yi Futian and the others arrived at the center of the Fei matrix, underneath the ancient book. They saw that the book had been opened, but it was blank. There was nothing written inside. What's going on? A few people showed a strange look and released their will, heading for the ancient book, trying to communicate with it. Yi Futian was thinking of the time when the black turtle was awakened before. Could it be that? His eyes changed again as everything between heaven and earth seemed to change once more. He felt that as his cultivation progressed, he seemed to be able to see more things. At this time, in his field of vision, the ancient book was still turning, but above the ancient book, he saw an extremely elusive figure. It seemed to be integrated into the ancient book. This, Yi Futian's pupils contracted slightly. He then released his will to communicate with it. At that moment, the ancient book released a brighter glow, and sacred rays shot directly toward Yi Futian. The ancient book seemed to light up and turn into endless characters. Each character floated toward his will and merged with it. Under the light of the ancient book, the entire person of Yi Futian became extremely sacred. Everyone saw the extraordinary event occurring on Yi Futian. The four figures stood underneath, but the light of the ancient book fell on Yi Futian only. It seemed to have chosen only him. The mystical ways had chosen its master. Qin He's beautiful eyes flashed brilliantly as she looked at Yi Futian next to her. She saw that the radiance from the ancient book was shining down. His entire person was illuminated by a beam of light, holy and sacred. Could the awakening of the four spirits have something to do with him? This thought arose in Qin He's mind. All four of them were standing here, so why did the mystical ways only choose Yi Futian? There was no need for contention, as it was completely useless. The mystical ways had chosen its own master. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. The three top figures from Futian City were also looking at Yi Futian, and a strange look was revealed in their eyes. The three top figures from Futian City were also looking at Yi Futian, and a strange look was revealed in their eyes. The mystical ways had chosen him? Tracing back the origin of the mystical ways, strictly speaking, Hua Qingyun of Celestial Gate of Vast Heaven and Wang Yanbing of the Wang clan were the true descendants of the Fei clan. If the mystical ways must choose a master, then the two of them should be the premier choices. However, it had chosen someone completely unrelated. The look of the lord of the Jiang clan was particularly different. Back when he was at the Origin Mountains, he had already obtained the bones of the divine elephant emperor of 10 directions. It was said that at the Celestial Fox Palace, no one recognized the bones of the demon emperor. Not even Zhu Yan the demon emperor could recognize them. But after the bones ended up in Yi Futian's hands, they were immediately refined by him. He had even learned the technique of divine elephants stomping the sky and later joined the divine elephants clan. Then, he heard that Yi Futian had defeated Zhan Yuan of the supreme body of the Great Path at the Violet Heavenly Palace. Rumor had it that he had obtained the most exquisite technique of the divine elephant emperor. No one expected that here today, out of the 4 people, the mystical ways had also chosen him. How special was this junior brother of Gu Donglu? If one time was a coincidence, then was this also a coincidence? It must be that this man had extraordinary ability. Maybe, after Gu Donglu woke up, they could ask him. The face of the head of the Wang clan looked terrible. The mystical ways had finally been revealed, but the one who obtained it was not of the Fei clan. Supposing it was Wang Yanbing who took the mystical ways this time, then their return to the celestial gate of vast heaven was guaranteed. With the 2 great Fei methods in hand, even the celestial gate of vast heaven had to open for them. Will we allow the Fei methods to be passed on to outsiders? The lord of the Wang clan asked the 2 lords of the Jiang and Hua clans. The lord of the Jiang clan glanced at him and said, "It was the mystical ways that chose its own master, the will of heaven. Do you want to change it by force?" We can only say that this man had his purpose with the Fei clan. Of course, I heard he is the junior brother of Gu Donglu, the head of the Wang clan said. Now, the Jiang clan was really considerate as far as the descendants of Gu Tianqing were concerned. He had allowed Yi Futian to participate in the competition of the mystical ways because of it. He would rather choose Yi Futian than Wang Yanbing. What is the problem? The lord of the Jiang clan asked as he looked at the others. The head of the Wang clan said nothing. He looked at the Wang Yanbing below and said, "Go back. I will see you at the Fei clan a few days from now." As he finished speaking, he turned around and took a step out, disappearing between heaven and earth. All the cultivators from the Wang clan stepped into the air, one after another, and Wang Yanbing also left with them. If the celestial gate of vast heaven allowed Yi Futian to inherit the mystical ways, clearly, they could not seize it by force. The light of the mystical ways continued to flow into Yi Futian's body. After a long while, the light finally started to fade. The ancient book that was floating in the void became dull and common. It fell from midair, and Yi Futian caught it. It was just a volume of blank pages. It was as if the purpose of this book was only to act as a conduit to seal the mystical ways. It's over. All eyes fell on Yi Futian. The mystical ways that were sealed in Fei Alley for so many years had finally found its master. However, this master was not a Fei, which was somewhat surprising. Yi Futian, which Fei method did you receive? The lord of the Jiang clan asked Yi Futian. Although Yi Futian had already received the inheritance, he still wanted to confirm whether it was really the one. Celestial soul attraction, Yi Futian responded. He did not conceal anything. Everyone had seen it, so there was no point in concealing it since the lord of the Jiang clan was willing to let him inherit it. Naturally, he won't make it hard for him. Celestial soul attraction, the lord of Jiang clan murmured. After so many years, finally, it was heard of again. Focus on cultivating, the lord of the Jiang clan instructed Yi Futian. The celestial soul attraction was extremely difficult to cultivate. Even in its time, there were many who could not master this method, for it was extremely demanding of its practitioners. It had been sealed for all these years until now. Since this method had chosen Yi Futian, it was highly probable that Yi Futian was a suitable candidate for its cultivation. "Let's go," the lord of the Jiang clan said, and immediately turned to leave with the cultivators of the Jiang clan. The people of the Hua clan also left one after another. "Let's also go back, Qin," he said to Yi Futian. Yi Futian nodded, and suddenly, the group returned to the crowd and left together. In Fei Alley, countless eyes watched Yi Futian as they left, slight tribulation in their hearts. From now on, in Futian City, Fei Alley was no more. This legend, which had been circulating for a millennium, had finally ended. Furthermore, many people felt that after this, Fei Alley would never be like it was before, producing geniuses as in the past. The 4 spirits each had its own fortune. Now that the 4 spirits had integrated into the Fei matrix, perhaps they had truly become 4 bona fide statues. In the void, Yi Futian and his group traveled through the air. Next to him, Qin he glanced at Yi Futian with her beautiful eyes, full of curiosity. She couldn't help but ask, "How did you do it?" From the awakening of the black turtle, the 4 spirits awakening at the same time, The mystical ways choosing its own master. She didn't understand. All in all, it felt as if the mystical ways were prepared for him. It was truly incredible. How many times do I have to say it? Divine body of the heavenly path, Yi Futian replied. You are so full of it, Qin, he said out of frustration. This B***starred was using this excuse again. She knew that she would probably get nothing out of Yi Futian. Do you think my conversation with the black turtle was fake? Yi Futian said with a smile. Are you saying it was real? Qin, he said with annoyance. He was really having a conversation with the four spirits. You're right. Of course, it was real. That black turtle also responded to me. Yi Futian smiled, as Qin he gave him a strange look. Previously, Yi Futian's inexplicable words at the Fey Alley had everyone puzzled, and many people thought that he was an idiot. Now Yi Futian claimed that it was for real. Did you know it existed? Qin, he asked. I could see it, Yi Futian said again. Qin he looked at Yi Futian's handsome profile and was vaguely convinced. Perhaps, he really had some special ability that others did not possess, so the mystical ways had chosen him. Then what about the mystical ways? Why did they choose you? Qin he continued to ask. Your curiosity is not to be deterred. A voice was heard, and Qin he turned her eyes to Xia Qingyuan, who was beside Yi Futian. She smiled and asked, Is it bad? It's not good. Something will happen. Xia Qingyuan replied, then accelerated forward. What will happen? Qin he looked strange. Yi Futian looked totally confused. What would happen? Back at the palace, Yi Futian began the cultivation of the mystical ways. He sat cross-legged, his breath flowing internally with his hands forming the seal. Suddenly, a breath flowed inside his body, moving around heaven. His body suddenly glowed brightly with light. His body suddenly turned into a vortex of the great path, and many forces around him merged inside his body, somehow resonating with his body. Although the cultivation of mystical ways and the other methods were all cultivations, there were still some differences. When the mystical ways were being summoned, another state was entered. The first thing he needed to do now was to find that state. Upon his body, the divine light of the great path was flowing brighter and brighter. It was as if there was divine light falling down. His thoughts covered the infinite world, and countless divine wills were out there, drawing in the power of heaven and earth. The divine light was radiant and bright. It was as the breath inside his body flowed. Suddenly, he felt that his soul was outside his body as if he was a part of heaven and earth. At this moment, he could see Qin he playing the guqin in the palace. He could see Yusheng sitting and cultivating. He could also see Xia Qingyuan sitting in the courtyard in a daze. Everything in the world had become extremely clear. This feeling seemed to be similar to his freedom meditation, but it was a real application. Celestial soul attraction. Yi Futian secretly remarked, Is this the state of the celestial soul? At this time, he could even sense the spirit of Qin He. It seemed that as soon as his mind moved, he could directly launch an attack. But Yi Futian did not do that. The celestial soul attracted more of the will of the great path between heaven and earth and integrated it into the celestial soul, making one's own breath immense, powerful, and strong. They could enter a state of sublimation that would make their attack power even more aggressive and terrible. This was not an art of direct attack, but it could make its own abilities more dominant and powerful. If it was used in a great attack method, its power would change again. He faintly understood the true meaning of those tests. If it were not for him to cultivate, any others would not be able to achieve it easily. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Yi Futian trained in the mystical ways quietly for the next several days. Yi Futian trained in the mystical ways quietly for the next several days. Training of mystical ways was just like the other methods, and it was only natural that it would have taken him more than just a day to do so. The deeper his comprehension, the more powerful they would be. The news of the mystical ways being acquired by an outsider was spread all over Futian City for quite some time. That man was named Yi Futian, and he was the younger brother in training of Gu Donglu, who was then training in the celestial gate of vast heaven. In that grand event held at the Violet Heavenly Palace not long ago, he had been able to defeat Zhang Yuan, the one who possessed the supreme body of the Great Path, by demonstrating legendary talents. That battle shot him to fame, and the conflict of the Great Path in the Heavenly Mandate realm had him concluded. Furthermore, Yi Futian seemed to have earned the admiration of beautiful women. The number one virgin of Brahma's pure sky, Qin He, did not even bother with the crown prince of Heavenly Mandate dynasty. She was very interested in Yi Futian instead and had been traveling with him for quite a while. They were at the moment training in the same palace, and they seemed to share a close relationship. At present, he had even acquired mystical ways of the celestial gate of vast heaven, making it so that accolade upon accolade was given to him, making him on par with those top-notch geniuses who were already famous. However, everyone was curious as to how Yi Futian had managed to have the mystical ways voluntarily pick a master. There was Hua Qingyun above the celestial gate and Wang Yanbing below. However, the mystical ways picked Yi Futian instead, and that baffled many people. There was also all manner of speculations circulating in Futian City. But then again, mystical ways that had been lost for a millennium was finally out in the world, and that was considered a piece of good news nonetheless. As time passed, the day where the Wang clan came to the celestial gate was finally upon them. Countless mighty ones gathered below the celestial gate of vast heaven on that day. Celestial light enveloped the celestial gate, making it look extremely sacred. Mighty ones were all over the steps of the celestial gate. Many mighty ones of the celestial gate gathered there, making a huge scene, leaving countless in awe. The rules of the celestial gate of vast heaven stated that a challenge to the clan was a matter of utmost importance. It could have been said to be one of the most important affairs of the clan, and the clan would definitely take the matter seriously. It was more than just a simple ordeal, as it seemed to be something tied to the future of the entire clan, so long as the Wang clan succeeded. The Wang clan would have returned to the fold of the celestial gate, becoming one of the rulers of the clan then. That would have been something affecting the fundamental organization and governance of the celestial gate. If the Wang clan were to rejoin the celestial gate, then they would have earned the right to make decisions about the affairs of the celestial gate. The people below were not only there to watch for their own amusement and pleasure. That was something that would have concerned the future of the clan, and the hearts of many were extremely heavy, and they all sported solemn expression. Back then at Fei Alley, the clan leader of the Wang clan appeared and had indeed reached the required plane. There was no actual need for a test. If everything were to go as it should have, Jiang Taichu and Wang Yanbing would have clashed to decide upon the future of the celestial gate, someone said. That was what many speculated before. Wang Yanbing paid a visit to Qin He that day, and Gu Tianxing expressed some of his thoughts regarding what the celestial gate did. If the Wang clan were to join the clan, things would have probably been dire for Gu Donglu. They would have possibly not wanted the celestial gate of vast heaven to pin too much of their hopes on Gu Donglu. The Wang clan had been one of the rulers of the celestial gate in the past, and they had little to do with the Gu clan in the first place. It was only natural that they would not have wanted to put too much effort into fostering Gu Donglu. They would have rather seen the effort being used on Gu Donglu to allow Wang Yanbing to stand at the pinnacle instead. What Wang Yanbing said that day fully showed his pride. We'll see who shall stand at the pinnacle of Heavenly Mandate realm. I wonder what level Gu Donglu is at right now. Many lowered their voices and quipped. They had yet to see that rumored Gu Donglu in person, yet his name was already a very big deal throughout the Heavenly Mandate realm. No one did not know of him despite it being the first time his name was heard throughout the realm due to what Gu Tianxing pulled. All of that happened because what Gu Tianxing did was simply too shocking. However, Gu Donglio's actual powers remained a mystery now, and everyone wondered what kind of surprises he would bring to the Heavenly Mandate realm. The sky above the celestial gate was all blue. More and more mighty ones showed up, and Yi Futian's group was there as well. Their appearance caught the attention of many, not just because it was Yi Futian who showed up, but also because there was Qin He and because there were those mystical ways in Fei Alley. Yi Futian and Qin He were both at the very front. There was little need to say anything about Qin He's appearance, and that silver-haired young man clad in white was just as handsome and extraordinary. They would have made quite the couple. It was rumored that the mystical ways sealed within St. Ali were the method practiced by Emperor Yuan all those years ago, celestial soul attraction. It was said that the art was extremely difficult, and I wonder how well he's done with it. Training in the mystical ways requires one to enter yet another plane, the Fey plane. Only by getting this far will one be able to get into the intricacies of the mystical ways. I'm afraid the training needs a long time to be completed, some said as they speculated. Yi Futian naturally sensed the eyes of everyone around him. Qin He, who was at his side, then said, "There are many looking at you. How do you know they're not looking at you?" Yi Futian smiled at Qin He and said, "Don't you know who you are to them?" Qin He shot a speechless look at him. The longer she was around him, the more she found him to be a flirt. However, what Yi Futian was the truth. Regardless of where she ended up, she would always be one of those people who caught the most attention. "We're not the main cast of the day." Yi Futian then added, "They're here too." He then looked up at the sky, seeing extremely pointed will permeating the place. While there was no one there just yet, he was already able to sense that extremely pointed aura. Divine light glittered, and it seemed as if legendary weapons zipped in the air and dropped down in an instant. The mighty ones spread out where the crowd was, creating some empty space. At the very next moment, a group of mighty ones descended from the air. The group who had just arrived was none other than the mighty ones from the Wang clan of Futian City. Wang Yanbing was undoubtedly among them. "They're here." Everyone sported solemn expressions. The mighty ones of the Wang clan then looked up at the celestial gate of vast heaven before them. All of them had determined, serious-looking eyes. It was especially so in the case of Wang Yanbing. His body was like that of a legendary weapon, emanating brimming, unyielding aura all over. The people of Futian City all said that the key to the Wang clan's admission into the celestial gate lied with his battle with Jiang Taichu, and that had indeed been the truth. If it had not been for him, the Wang clan would not have issued such a challenge. Wang clan's expulsion by the celestial gate all those years ago was seen as an eternal insult by those in the clan, and they had held it close to their heart. The Wang clan was thinking about returning to the celestial gate all the time, and that had been the teaching that had been passed down along the generations all this time. Their descendants were required to give all they had to allow the Wang clan to return to the celestial gate, reclaiming the glory that had been lost throughout the years. On that day, Wang Yanbing swore that he would definitely achieve that feat. He swore not to go home until he achieved it. He would be far from being qualified to rise to the pinnacle of the heavenly mandate realm otherwise. "We of the Wang clan of Futian City intend to return to the celestial gate," the clan leader stood at the forefront and said. His voice reverberated throughout the place. His voice was heard everywhere in the celestial gate. The Wang clan intended to return to the celestial gate. More mighty ones appeared on the steps. The place from the celestial gate to the bottom was filled with mighty ones of the celestial gate. Two figures stood side by side above. It was the clan leaders of both the Jiang clan and the Hua clan. The Wang clan was once a ruling force in the celestial gate. "We left the celestial gate and trained in Futian City, practicing the mystical ways. Our clan was in Futian City for generations," the clan leader of the Jiang clan said with a brimming voice. "The Wang clan is allowed to challenge the right of entry to the celestial gate. The people of Futian City shall bear witness to this." The celestial gate of vast heaven was Futian City's celestial gate. Only forces of Futian City approved by the celestial gate would be allowed entry into the celestial gate. Clan leader of the Wang clan, "Please demonstrate your plane of training," an elder below announced. The clan leader of the Wang clan stepped forward and came below the celestial gate. His body gradually rose into the air. Celestial light dazzled on his body, and imperial might spread out all over the place. Countless below the celestial gate of vast heaven sensed that towering might emanating from him. "Ren Huang of the Wang clan, please demonstrate your plane of training," the elder continued. That was a hidden condition. There was a need for a clan to have over 9 Ren Huang among them. In truth, the people of Futian City all knew that as the pinnacle force of Futian City, the Wang clan had long met the requirements of returning to the celestial gate. Terrifying might of Renhuang burst at the same time in the crowd where the Wang clan stood. There were 10 might of Renhuang sensed, which made it obvious that they had met the requirement. You passed, the elder responded. The clan leader of the Wang clan returned, and the aura was rescinded. The elder then continued, the Wang clan shall now choose a Renhuang and a saint to challenge those of similar planes in the Celestial Gate. You shall be permitted to return to the Celestial Gate should you win one of the 2 battles. 2 figures stepped out from the Wang clan. A Renhuang and a saint. The Renhuang was named Wang Yu. He had formidable power. However, the people of Futian City all thought that he had yet to reach the level required by the Celestial Gate. Wang Yanbing would have been the only one who was qualified to fight with the top figures in the Celestial Gate. It was said that Wang Yanbing had trained the mystical ways passed down the Wang clan to extremely formidable levels. Both of them came below the steps and looked up at the Celestial Gate. Clan leaders, please select your candidates, the elder then said to the clan leaders of both the Jiang clan and the Hua clan. 2 figures stepped out, and, as expected, it was a very powerful Renhuang. The saint was none other than Jiang Taichu. Jiang Taichu's robed appearance made him look extraordinary. His eyes were locked onto Wang Yanbing below. If the Wang clan intended to return to the Celestial Gate, then Wang Yanbing needed to defeat him. Hold on. At that moment, a voice was heard from the Celestial Gate. Many sported puzzled looks at that turn of events. The Wang clan looked up in the sky, finding it rather astonishing that someone had interrupted such a sacred period. The Wang clan had been preparing for this day for too long. Nobody would have been allowed to get in the way of them returning to the Celestial Gate. At that moment, celestial light rained down from the Celestial Gate. A figure was seen treading the celestial light as he walked down from above. Many quickly recognized that figure soon enough. It was an extremely handsome and extraordinary man. His white garb was immaculate, and he wore hair bindings. His eyes were brimming, and he looked dashing in a way impossible to put into words. Furthermore, he had celestial light coursing all over him. It was as if he had been enveloped in holy will, appearing extremely extraordinary. The clan leader of the Jiang clan's eyes smiled when he saw that man. Who is he? Someone asked. All from the Wang clan looked him, and that silhouette reminded them of someone. Gu Donglu. Those below realized who it was, and their eyes sparkled. Gu Donglu appeared. Third brother. A smile was seen in the eyes of Yi Futian, who was in the crowd. He finally met his third brother again, and his third brother looked incredible. Donglu, the sword saint called as well. The weight on his shoulders was finally lifted. Gu Donglu was now a holiness of nirvana. The minds of many were rattled. They did not expect that Gu Donglu would have emerged at such a critical time. That legendary figure that Gu Tianxing had created had actually become a holiness of nirvana. Just how strong was he? The Wang clan intended to return to the Celestial Gate on that day. Gu Donglu of the Celestial Gate emerged from isolation. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Gu Donglu was seen standing on top of those steps, and he was clad all over in celestial light. Gu Donglu was seen standing on top of those steps, and he was clad all over in celestial light. If there is to be a fight among the saints, allow me, Gu Donglu said. He knew that he had been taken into the Celestial Gate by the clan leader of the Jiang clan and that there was definitely a lot of criticism circulating. In truth, despite having trained for all that time, he was nonetheless able to sense a lot going on with the outside world. He felt as if he had been in a very long dream all that while, and reality was somehow intertwined with that dream. He felt that he had even lived several lives. One of those memories that left the most impression on him was that of his grandfather, Gu Tianxing, as well as that of his father, Gu Jiangnan. The memories of the figures of 2 past generations left an extremely significant impact on him. His grandfather, Gu Tianxing, was a man of honor, standing tall with the burden of the Celestial Gate resting on his shoulders. He had been creating peerless methods of the mystical ways to break the binds of the heavenly path. His father, Gu Jiangnan, was a genius like none other, yet he was unfortunate enough to die an early death. Gu Donglu had wondered why he had been wandering alone outside in the past, but time washed away all those thoughts, and he could now let them go. However, everything began anew again. He shouldered the will of two of his predecessors and entered the celestial gate of vast heaven again. Everything would have begun anew. Very well. Jiang Taichu, who was below, turned around to look at Gu Donglu above, before walking up the steps. If there were to be a fight between the saints, he would have left it to Gu Donglu. Everyone understood what was going on. Countless pairs of eyes looked at Gu Donglu, knowing that he needed to fight. Countless below looked at the ones who emerged, and they deemed that Gu Donglu would have been the more appropriate candidate for the fight. When Wang Yanbing paid a visit to Qinhe, he talked about the matter with Gu Donglu. If the Wang clan were to rejoin the Celestial Gate, it would have affected Gu Donglu directly. As such, with Gu Donglu emerging to fight, he was actually fighting to determine his destiny. Wang Yanbing looked up at that figure. He had not expected Gu Donglu to emerge out of isolation at such a time, or that Gu Donglu had become a holiness of nirvana right away. Wang Yanbing became truly impressed with Gu Tianxing, who had been going against the mandate of heaven, so much so that he had even managed to break the rules of the world of cultivators, enabling Gu Donglu to actually be able to advance in such a short period of time. But then again, that would have had a lot of variables at play, and Gu Tianxing alone would not have been able to pull it all off. That man tapped into the will of the demon monarch, devouring everything within the Origin Mountains into a single divine matrix before passing it all on to Gu Donglu. He had even left his will to Gu Donglu. The grandfather gave the grandson everything. Gu Donglu, at the moment, had inherited everything that had belonged to Gu Tianxing. He had even inherited the laws of origin. However, even so, Wang Yanbing's expression remained as pointed as always. There was not even a single hint of doubt on his face. Jiang Taichu was, too, a legendary figure and of a stable plane. He had long made it into the plane of holiness of nirvana and was known as the number one below the Renhuang in the celestial gate of vast heaven. Despite all that he had inherited, he had nonetheless skipped planes to get to where he was at now, and his plane was necessarily as stable as Jiang Taichu's. Wang Yanbing wondered if it had been the right thing to do for Gu Donglu, fighting him as soon as he emerged out of isolation. Regardless of who was the one standing before him, Wang Yanbing deemed that there was no stopping the Wang clan from rejoining the Celestial Gate, even if said person was Gu Donglu. Furthermore, he deemed that to be a better turn of events. If Gu Donglu were to be the one fighting, then there was no doubt that it would have proven the words he said that day. Wang Yanbing stated that the Celestial Gate of vast heaven should not have taken Gu Donglu into their fold. Let's have the Renhuang do battle, that elder at the Celestial Gate of vast heaven announced at that moment. If the Renhuang of the Wang clan were to be able to win in the fight, then there would have no need for the saints to fight, as the Wang clan would have been able to get into the Celestial Gate and become one of the ruling clans of the place. The two Renhuangs stepped out and took to the air. They eyed each other, and they had yet to fully burst with their aura, yet the crowd throughout that vast place sensed all that stifling pressure nonetheless. It was as if there were two wills of Renhuang coming down at the same time, which felt like pressure coming down from the heavens. The robes of the two fighters billowed as their eyes met. It was as if the clash of wills had already begun. Terrifying aura formed around them as if their auras had been compressed to the extreme. High-pitched noises were heard, and terrifying aura formed around the vicinity of those two fighters. It was as if a formless storm of the Great Path had been compressed to an extremely small area, preventing the effects from hitting the others. Renhuangs were just as eerily impeccable at controlling their powers, and they were known to be at the top when it came to control. They all had absolute control of their own powers and would definitely keep those powers in check as they fought, as fights between Renhuangs could only be done at very, very high altitudes. Even without unleashing their powers fully, the crowd sensed that the area where the two were had been rendered as no man's land. If anyone were to step into it without care, said person would definitely be torn to shreds right away, leaving nothing behind. The robes of the two Renhuang continued to billow, and high-pitched noises continued to be heard. However, the Renhuang of the Celestial Gate of vast heaven stepped back for a bit at that moment. Shrill cutting noises were heard, and many cuts were seen on his robe. On the other side, that Renhuang from the Wang clan grunted, and blood seeped from the corner of his mouth. What was even more terrifying was how even his eyes bled, making the scene look harrowing. It was obvious that the Renhuang was injured. That stifling pressure dissipated, and the Renhuang from the Celestial Gate cupped his hands and said, "It has been an honor." The Renhuang of the Wang clan bowed slightly before retreating, not saying a word as he did so. That battle had not rattled the minds of the spectators much, especially those of the Wang clan. There were two pinnacle forces in the Celestial Gate, and they had deployed their strongest fighter. It was completely normal for the Wang clan to end up losing. They had long anticipated that happening in the battle, and as such, they never had too much hope about it. The true battle lied with Wang Yanbing. That #1 cultivator below the Renhuang plain from Futian City, on the other hand, was one who had truly been able to beat top figures from the Celestial Gate. Wang Yanbing was of equal renown to Jiang Taichu and Hua Qingyun. Wang Yanbing. A voice was heard saying at that moment. The clan leader of the Wang clan looked at him and said, "It's up to you now." At that moment, all of the mighty ones from the Wang clan looked at him. There were high expectations in every single pair of eyes. That solemn atmosphere had even affected the others. At that moment, many had even sympathized with the Wang clan, hoping that they would be able to rejoin the Celestial Gate again. After enduring all that humiliation for over a millennium, they had pinned all those high hopes onto one person. Many had been incapable of relating to said hopes before, yet at that moment, all of them seemed to have understood all that hope was placed onto one man. In the Wang clan's perspective, it was a battle that they could not afford to lose. If they were to lose, such a chance would not come again for the next 100 or 1,000 years. If Wang Yanbing were to end up being beaten, there would have been no telling when another equal to him would emerge. As such, the Wang clan had to win. If they were to miss that opportunity, the wait would be forever. The Wang clan would not be able to wash away all the humiliation they endured all those years ago, and they would never be able to rejoin the Celestial Gate ever again. Wang Yanbing, having sensed the hopes in all those eyes, stepped forward. He walked tall and proud, like a sword drawn from its scabbard and thrust forward. "I'm not going home if we are not able to get into the Celestial Gate." An extremely shrill voice was heard throughout the air. Such was Wang Yanbing's resolve. "I'm not going home if we are not able to get into the Celestial Gate." The weight in those words was obvious. Wang Yanbing took one step after another forward, with every step howling with the will of divine arms, shooting at Gu Donglu above. Gu Donglu stepped out after seeing Wang Yanbing move, heading down the steps. Wang Yanbing shouldered the 1,000-year-old hopes of his clan, while Gu Donglu shouldered the wills of both Gu Tianxing and Gu Jiangnan, who were both legendary figures. Neither of them could afford to lose in that battle. Not Wang Yanbing, not Gu Donglu. Countless held their breath as they sensed that solemn air about them, fixing their gaze on the battlefield. That vast space was unusually silent. That battle seemed like it would have been more eye-catching than the one fought between the Renhuangs prior. Wang Yanbing stepped out and walked up the steps of the Celestial Gate. He was determined not to go home until he succeeded as he made his steps forward. He did not suppress the burst of his aura. There were many Renhuangs around. Regardless of how formidable their auras were, there would have been Renhuangs standing guard nonetheless. As such, there was no need for the saints to hold themselves back. In that instant, many mighty ones who wore divine arms behind the scene felt their divine arms rattling and ringing. Their swords struggled to shoot out of their scabbards while spears intended to fly forward. Frightening aura was conjured around Wang Yanbing's body. The power of the great path coalesced in the sky above. Such was the way of the divine arms. Howling was heard, and swords were conjured, ringing angrily in the sky. The weapons shot forward and appeared right above Gu Donglio's head. In that instant, there seemed to have been a divine arms diagram appearing in the air. Wang Yanbing continued to burst up the steps. Weapons rained down as he charged at Gu Donglu. Gu Donglu lowered his head and looked below him. He stood around like a mystical figure, looking dashing and unfettered. The light of the 9 symbols circled around his body, causing a frightening aura to appear around his body. He then pointed at the sky with one finger, and a huge ancient symbol emerged. Lin. The symbol shot downwards, and the air shook with a stifled tremble. The air seemed to have been placed in a lockdown. All raging attacks were stopped immediately. The scene with massive amounts of divine arms raining down was unbelievably terrifying, yet Gu Donglu had simply pointed his finger upward, and a Lin symbol went on to shroud the sky in its entirety. The strokes of the symbol stood at the center of the myriad of ancient symbols, shrouding everything within. Countless had their eyes fixed on that huge symbol. Everyone paid close attention to that battle, and it was more than just Wang Yanbing making his way into the Celestial Gate. It was also the first time Gu Donglu was seen fighting. That legendary figure that Gu Tianxing had created with methods that shocked the mystical regions, everyone wondered how he would have fared. But Wang Yanbing remained unfazed at all. He stepped forward again. Mystical light circled around him, and his life spirit appeared behind him. That life spirit was a symbol as well. Constituted of the mystical ways that the Wang clan, the art of Yanbing. That was where the name Wang Yanbing came from, and it was obvious that the Wang clan had indeed pinned all their hopes onto him. The life spirit appeared, and celestial light flowed. The thousands of divine arms whipped up a terrifying storm, turning into a maelstrom of divine arms, tearing the Lin seal apart with peerless combative powers. Multiple divine arms appeared behind Wang Yanbing as well. All of them were in the form of swords. Many claimed that swords were the king of all weapons, and they were able to break through everything. But Wang Yanbing continued to step out, bringing that terrifying, all-shredding storm of divine arms at Gu Donglu. The swords all around him shot forth in an instant. Furthermore, all divine arms that emerged from him seemed to be even sharper than true divine weapons. The divine arms all glittered with brilliant light as they resonated with their surroundings, making them able to bring down everything they struck. No one was allowed to stand in his way on that day. It was all the same, even if the one were to be Gu Donglu. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. The storm of divine arms rained down in a flurry. The speeds at which the countless weapons traveled were extreme. The storm of divine arms rained down in a flurry. The speeds at which the countless weapons traveled were extreme. The divine swords before Wang Yanbing thrust forward as well. The will of Bing tore through space, looking even more terrifying than true divine weapons. That sharpness enabled all who were far away to sense the will of the divine arms. Gu Donglu remained standing where he was and looked down on the figure below. He did not move, and the celestial light of the 9 symbols circled all around him. A dazzling celestial figure appeared behind him all of a sudden. He took one step forward, which caused huge golden rocks to shot forward howling. They flew while covered in divine golden light, and their wings shrouded the skies when spread, enveloping all of the divine arms into it. The divine arms and the rock clashed intensely, and the crowd shockingly found that the rocks seemed to have been something that were summoned instead of conjured. They were true divine birds instead of illusory constructs. Their huge bodies had countless symbols of Bing glittering on them, causing them to contain a power that could have raised everything before them, and they had indeed stopped those incoming divine arms. He just summoned divine birds? The crowd watched Gu Donglu and was reminded of the lineage that Gu Donglu inherited. He had the luck of all of the origin mountains on him. However, that formidable display of power did not affect Wang Yanbing's resolve. Every single step that he had taken caused more divine arms to appear in different directions, shrouding the sky as they moved. It took mere moments to make it seem as if the area where Gu Donglu was about to be drowned in divine arms. The rocks that were covering him were all shuddering, and cracks were seen on them. Wang Yanbing has been using the way of Bing to the very extreme. That attack was simply too powerful. If it had been other holiness of nirvanas, they probably wouldn't have been able to withstand such formidable attacks. The hearts of all who watched the battle trembled. The attack from every single divine arm made them feel that it was the extreme of saintly methods at work in every instant. The power of that many divine arms raining down on someone was utterly terrifying. Wang Yanbing's plane might not have reached the very extreme of sainthood, but his attacks had definitely brought such powers to bear. The mystical ways that the Wang clan practiced were emphasized on Bing, which was inherently leaning towards attacks, and those methods were known to be invincible in offensive powers. Wang Yanbing looked up at the glittering divine birds. He took another step, and divine arms rained down again. Cracking noises were heard as if a tear was being opened. Those birds then all had cracks all over them, and the rune of Bing began to crack as well. Boom! A rumbling was heard, and the runes were destroyed. The divine birds were no more. Those killing divine arms seemed to be out to bury the opposing mystical ways. In the very next moment, however, Gu Donglu took another step below, seemingly suppressed that rampaging will of sharpness. Huge demonic beasts charged forward. There were true dragons, black turtles, Qilin, and Kuei emerging. Every single of those vast beasts seemed to have been imbued with his will. The runes of the 9 symbols circled about and crushed all those incoming divine arms, breaking them into pieces. That battle was very eerie. It seemed that both combatants were taking strolls in a garden instead. What was different, however, was that Wang Yanbing was walking up as he wanted to enter the celestial gate. Gu Donglu, on the other hand, walked down the steps, getting in the way of Wang Yanbing, who wanted to get to the celestial gate. However, the strides that the two were taking were enough to have the crowd hold their breaths. Every single step they took was perilous, as they were imbued with extremely formidable attacks. Both walked towards each other, one step after another. The rampaging auras howled in the chaotic space. It was as if it was a statement saying that Wang Yanbing had no hope of getting past, regardless of how powerful his attacks would have been. The will of Bing on him became increasingly powerful. Someone discovered as he continued walking above. Divine arms continued to shoot at his opponent, while his body grew increasingly sharp. The will of Bing continued to climb as if it was about to reach a critical point. Is he charging up? The crowd came to a possible conclusion, and their minds rattled. The possibility of that happening was indeed high. Wang Yanbing was a genius who had practiced the art of Yanbing to extreme heights after all. That rampaging, boundless way of Bing was indeed a sign of Wang Yanbing charging up. At present, those attacks were not only all around Gu Donglio's body. Everywhere around the two of them, there were storms of divine arms of unparalleled force. Wang Yanbing stepped out again. He looked up at Gu Donglu and said with an extremely pointed voice, "I'm getting into the celestial gate. Despite having acquired pinnacle lineage, you still are not going to get in my way. You are not getting into the celestial gate." Gu Donglio's voice appeared calm instead. He uttered only one line. "That's so." Wang Yanbing replied. He finally stopped and did not move upward any further. He simply looked at the storms in the air, and holy celestial light coursed all about him, making him look incredibly glittering. He performed seals and celestial light covered him all over. He then uttered a line with a solemn voice. "At the pinnacle of Yanbing, all laws shall return to a single entity, and I shall be a divine arm." His voice was heard, and all the towering storms of divine arms surged into his body right away. Tens of thousands of divine arms gathered into and melded with his body. In that very instant, Wang Yanbing had become the king of weapons, and he was the leader of all tens of thousands of weapons in him. An extremely sharp aura burst from Wang Yanbing. The clouds in the sky howled as if there was only the way of Bing throughout the vast area. At that moment, Wang Yanbing looked extremely dangerous, as he became a manifestation of tens of thousands of weapons in one entity. "That's how it is, after all," many muttered to themselves. It was as speculated by the crowd, Wang Yanbing's art of Yanbing had indeed reached such a level. An intense beam of light was seen, and the crowd saw Wang Yanbing's body disappear from where he stood, turning into a beam of light and a sword. He did not continue to walk upward. He had instead zipped past the space in an instant, shooting at Gu Donglu. The crowd did not see where Wang Yanbing's body was again. They simply saw a sword, and he was that sword. He shot into the air as a sword, and an intense aura of sharpness of the sword permeated the air. The weapon was already at its destination before anyone was able to say a word, punching from the body of a demonic beast. One summoned demonic beast after another was reduced to nothing as the blade continued to travel through them. All of them were punched through by just a single attack from the weapon. That straight beam of the sword seemed to about to punch through Gu Donglio's body right away. It was simply too quick for even the eyes of the spectators to follow. A rumble was heard, and it was only then that the crowd was able to see that sword clearly. It was being stopped by a single being. That was a glittering celestial shadow, which looked as if it was conjured out of Gu Donglio's being. That body glittering in celestial light was dazzling, resonating with their surroundings. The 9 symbols circled all about him. Countless shadows of huge beasts roared at the same time a punch was thrown. The punch of E blasted onto the sword, stopping that sword that was out to kill everything. The sword rang as it stood against that mystical shadow. Shadows of huge demonic beasts were being torn apart one after another. The sword disappeared in an instant, zipping past in the air and appearing in yet another direction, lunging at Gu Donglu once again. Gu Donglu lifted his head and took a look. That mystical figure seemed to have been able to teleport. It stood right before the sword yet again, throwing a terrifying punch of the great path. The space all around them trembled. That sword howled in a frenzy and came from different directions one after another. Yet, the celestial shadow followed wherever the sword appeared as if it had completely locked onto it, chasing it everywhere it went. A rumble was heard, and the sword was thrown behind, hanging in the air. A figure glimmered. It was none other than Wang Yanbing himself. His eyes looked extremely pointed. The sword continued to tremble as if his mind was shuddering. He wondered how a sword attack like that remained incapable of breaking the mystical defense before him. The mighty ones of the Wang clan all sported glum expression at that scene, as it was obvious that the defense remained unbroken. Wang Yanbing had transformed into a sword, yet he still was unable to force Gu Donglu to back off. "You shouldn't have picked a time like this to do so," Gu Donglu said to the sword hanging in the air. The Wang clan had been waiting and working hard for a millennium just to rejoin the Celestial Gate. Yet, Gu Donglu just happened to return, shouldering the wills of both Gu Tianxing and Gu Jiangnan. It was impossible and impermissible for him to lose. If he were to lose, then all Gu Tianxing had done would be for nothing. All of that had significant weight behind. As such, it was destined that Wang Yanbing remain unable to enter the Celestial Gate still. The millennium-long wait had eventually ended up being for nothing. "I will definitely get to the Celestial Gate." A voice was heard from the sword, which reverberated throughout the air, signifying Wang Yanbing's resolve. Despite the odds at the moment, his resolve remained adamant. He would definitely get to the Celestial Gate. Gu Donglu did not say anything else. Boundless celestial light rained down, and that celestial shadow returned, shining dazzlingly like a god clad in armor. Gu Donglio's life spirit glittered as it appeared right behind him, which was a matrix diagram. The diagram consumed the celestial light and continued to grow in size. The great path of their surroundings howled, and all was consumed by that matrix, infused within the diagram. It took just several brief moments before the matrix stood tall in the air, and Gu Donglio's body gradually hovered. The Juexian diagram. The mighty ones from the Wang clan were all ashen when they saw that life spirit emerge. Their hearts were bleeding at the scene. The humiliation that they had been enduring for 1,000 years remained incapable of being scrubbed away. The hope that they held onto for 1,000 years was about to be torn apart. None of them anticipated Gu Donglu to have gained the Juexian diagram. That Juexian diagram had been renowned throughout the world all those years ago, and there was no one who did not know about it. When the Juexian diagram emerges, all laws shall perish, and all life shall wither. Gu Tianxing was a man who was at the brink of death, and all of them wondered how he managed to pass the Juexian diagram down to Gu Donglu. They wondered if Gu Tianxing was able to still peer into the secrets of the heavenly path, enabling him to lay all that back in the Origin Mountains. Countless people below were seen sporting solemn expressions. They seemed to have seen another Gu Tianxing. It was more than just a diagram spinning as it worked in the air. There were celestial and demonic shadows on the diagram. Regardless of their origins, all of them sported immense, terrifying pressure. One boundlessly huge ancient symbol after another appeared on that huge celestial diagram, making it look like some divine matrix. At that moment, the symbol of Bing on the Futian diagram lit up. Divine arms in the thousands appeared from within the matrix, conjuring divine weapons out of the great path of their surroundings. "You shouldn't have shown up," Gu Donglu said as he looked at Wang Yanbing. The weapons rained down as he finished the line. The ancient symbol of Bing lit up with the brightest light, shining light in the air as if it was a manifestation of billions of divine arms at work. On the sword that Wang Yanbing transformed into, extremely formidable power burst. When the divine arms rained at it, the sword thrust forward instead of retreating, zipping past the air and heading straight for Gu Donglu. Terrifying offensive force rained down and blasted on the sword. However, the sword remained adamant and kept moving forward. But then again, the attacks from the divine arms were unceasingly under the will of Bing. It did not matter how strong the attack of that one sword would have been. That divine sword that glittered brilliantly was thrown back in a rumble. Wang Yanbing's body was seen in the air again. Blood was seen at the corner of his mouth, which apparently meant that he was injured. Wang Yanbing looked at Gu Donglu in the air and felt completely helpless. The celestial beings and the demons howled below the Futian diagram. Wang Yanbing witnessed, on that day, the unmatched mystical ways that Gu Tianxing created at work, the work of a man known to be at the absolute pinnacle of the mystical ways. None could have surpassed his achievements. Wang Yanbing had transformed into a divine weapon himself, yet he remained helpless. He wondered if that was all there was to him. He questioned how it would have been possible for him to reach the very top if it truly turned out to be so. He wondered if he was even qualified to fight Gu Donglu. His body charged in the air. Boundless, sharp aura of Bing surged into his body, glittering as he took the form of a broadsword, shrouding the air. The blade cleaved the sky at the very moment it was conjured, cutting through the air at Gu Donglu. It seemed as if that blade was the only thing that was found all around them. Gu Donglu took one look at it before lifting his arms and taking flight. Countless celestial shadows coalesced into a single entity in the form of a legendary figure. That celestial shadow closed its hands and clapped onto the blade. The light of the blade was immensely dazzling, intending to keep coming down, yet that celestial figure seemed to have absorbed the light of the divine matrix and remained unflinching. The hands turned, and the blade was rendered crooked, which was then flicked away and rang in high pitches in the air. Wang Yanbing was found within the blade, and his face was completely ashen. "So this is how helpless I am?" he thought. Those from the Wang clan felt helpless at the scene as well. The clan leader of the Wang clan sighed deep down. They had finally produced Wang Yanbing after years of preparation, yet the outcome remained disappointing. "Leave," Gu Donglu said to Wang Yanbing. The blade was shuddering, seemingly wailing in sorrow. "Enough." The clan leader looked at the sky and muttered gently. The figure within the broadsword turned to look below. He saw the eyes of his clansmen, dimmed and sorrowful. All their wishes throughout the years had been for nothing. That was the resolve he clung onto growing up, which culminated into the Wang Yanbing that stood there on that day. Getting into the celestial gate was what fueled his training. At present, that resolve seemed to have come apart. He wondered if he should back away. Everything had been for naught. If he was incapable of beating Gu Donglu on that day, it would be the same in the future. All of his efforts were for nothing in the end. At that moment, Wang Yanbing was reminded of the conversation he had with Yi Futian, questioning who would have eventually been at the very top of Heavenly Mandate Realm. At present, a mountain stood before him, and he wondered if he would remain unable to overcome it. He was determined not to go home if he were to not get into the celestial gate. Yet, at present, there was just no way he could have made good on his word. That figure in the air looked up and charged in an instant. The winds howled in the sky, and the will of the divine arms shrouded the air. The broadsword was turned into a sword again, which had a teardrop on it. The sword was weeping. Wang Yanbing. The clan leader of the Wang clan shouted at that scene and added, "Get back here." A terrifying aura burst, and he was about to interfere. "I'm not going home if I do not succeed." A solemn voice was heard throughout the air. At that very moment, the sword shattered. However, that shattered sword conjured thousands of divine swords in its stead, which were imbued with the great path of their surroundings. At that moment, countless swords were found in the air. It was as if there were countless Wang Yanbing all over the place. He was determined not to go home until he had gotten into the celestial gate. Bing, dismantle. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.